And there comes a point, you know, to any camel's life, to any human being's life who has been kind of burdened by biology, by their past, by living in society, where they say, you know, why the hell am I doing this? I mean, people break down. I mean, mental illness is a serious issue right now in this country because it's just too much pressure on a sole individual, especially individuals who have no communities to which they can belong and find meaning and find support system. And so, you know, a camel at a certain point says, I don't want to carry all the stuff anymore. Maybe I should go seek therapy to get rid of all the stuff that happened to me in my childhood. You know, maybe I should quit my job. Maybe I should leave my marriage. I mean, you know, you don't want to be a camel. You don't want to carry burdens imposed upon you or given to you by other people, especially people who don't really care for you. It's something that Karl Marx talked about, you know, where you live in an environment that kind of makes you a stranger even to yourself. You know, you no longer have to look at your wife and look at your husband, or you can look at your children or your parents and say, I have no idea who these people are. These days, you just look yourself in the mirror and you say, who am I? What am I? What the hell is wrong with me? You know, I mean, almost all of us kind of suffer from this paralysis of sorts. And so as a camel, you want to remove all this, you know, weight, all this baggage off of your shoulder. Just get rid of them. But despite all of your complaints about the desert, despite all of your complaints about the heaviness of the things you're carrying, it's been your life for 30 years. You know, you have no idea how to live your life in the desert without any, you know, baggage. You have no idea how to survive outside of the desert. You know, it's one thing to desire change, and it's great, don't get me wrong, Emily. It's a great thing to desire to change, you know. But I doubt very much what the camel is desiring. I doubt very much that the camel knows and is fully aware of all the addictions and habits that now live inside him or her. You know, and just in case you want to kind of remove, you know, it's kind of like that story that there is this guy who escapes this mental institute and, you know, finds himself in the middle of a very, very busy street and comes to realize that the people in society are really crazy. And so he runs back to the institute saying that this is the sanest place, you know, I've been in. You know, so here you are in a mental institute and you've been dreaming for the past like 50 years to escape and break free, and finally you do. You walk into society and realize people are just nuts, you know. They're rushing to work that they hate. They're rushing home to a marriage or an environment that they despise. And you say, well, you know, at least I have some friends in the institute. I really enjoy their company. I don't hate them. The food could kind of improve, but, you know, so the camel, despite desiring to change, is not fully aware of how, you know, kind of the struggle, the suffering, the complaints have given meaning and purpose to his life. You know, the camel is like is a gossiper, is a tabloid. You sit the camel down, talk to camel about anything, and there is a list of complaints that he has. I mean, it's quite meaningful. I mean, go to a gathering where everybody's enlightened. What are they going to talk about? You know? I mean, imagine like Moses and Jesus and Moji and Eckhart Tolle and Jordan Peterson sitting in a room. He says, well, what is the meaning of life? Jordan, I'm enlightened. I don't really care what your meaning is. I'm content. Okay, move on. You know, and this is going to be the response for everyone. You know, so despite the fact that all of us complain about how miserable the desert life is, it's addictive. And we write books about it. We create art and music. And we go to the classroom and talk about how miserable the desert life is. But, there comes a point where the camel really, in a very sincere and honest and courageous way says, I have examined all that lives inside me, and I've examined all the things that live outside of me, and I find both worlds to be unworthy, and I really, really do want to change. And then you kind of have to go out there and ask questions from people to see if anyone out there can guide you, And it's to some extent very much like Plato's cave, where the man begins to ask, his friends, if there's a way out, if they've ever thought about a way out, if, they're as miserable as he is. And what the camel comes to realize is that most of the people he asks questions from, they have really never given this stuff much thought. They have really never examined anything. They're quite content with, it's kind of like the movie The Matrix. They're quite content being a Duracell battery and having their energy taken by other people. They're fine with that. And, something happens to the camel. The camel becomes very proud, proud like a lion, proud like a dragon, where he says, I am much better than all the camels who live around me. I am much better than all the people who live around me because I ask questions. And I'm very serious about the questions and honest about the questions. And I'm just going to kind of laugh and feel sorry for the people who do drugs, who do alcohol, who do porn, who do clubbing and dancing, just waste their life away. And, you have a lamb who was innocent. You have a camel who was carrying this baggage. The camel becomes a bit self-aware and he also becomes socially aware. But now there is this arrogance that consumes the camel. And he assumes that because he sees a few things, because he knows a few things, that he is much better than all the camels, that all the other people, Emily, I hope, are you still awake?
Yes, I'm listening carefully. I was lying down and now I'm sitting up.
No. Emily, listen, I shared with you at the very beginning, I have a tendency of, especially as I'm aging, of rambling on endlessly. There is no reason for you to sit up. You can...
No, I think you might be getting just right to the good part, so.
Oh, you are a woman. Okay. A tongue of a serpent.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. When people go to watch Lakers play, when they go to watch 49ers play, when they go to, I don't know, hear Snoop Dogg sing or rap, in many ways they know that they're not going to be the next Joe Montana. They know they're not going to be the next rap artist. They know they're not going to be the Rez Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They're just going to go there, be inspired for 2, 3, 4 hours, and then they're going to go home. The tragedy is when you go to Jordan Peterson's lecture or Jesus' lecture, you don't think of these people as celebrities of the intellectual world. These are like musicians. You go there to listen, to enjoy, then you're going to go home. You're not going to be a musician. You're not going to start taking piano classes. That's not the way it works. Your life is busy. You go and, watch them play the sport for 2 hours, and then you can go home and talk about it for a week. And I think the mistake that many of us perhaps make is that we go and hear these people talk, and the assumption is that we can become like them. And that's not true. That change for us is not possible. And I think you should just go and listen to Jordan Peterson very much the way you go listen to Phil Collins or MC Hammer. You know, you just go to take a break from the busyness of your life for 5-6 hours. It's like going on vacation. You know, when you go on vacation, you don't quit your job. You don't give up your apartment. You're just gone for 2 weeks. And then you have no choice but to go back home to your miserable life. And that's just the way things are. You know. You know, so... And there is nothing wrong as long as you know. And the problem is these people kind of just go on the stage and tell you you can't actually change if you do A, B, C, D. And it's not true. You can't change if you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and more. You know? You know, so the camel, going back to the story, begins to question and comes to realize most people are incompetent, unreflective. Now the camel becomes arrogant. How do you change the arrogance, the pride? How do you change that into humility? How do you break someone's arrogance when they see no one above them? You know, you're a lion now. You're a king of this jungle, and society is a jungle. You know, and you roar, and everybody's, fearful of you. I mean, there's a reason why humanity destroyed Socrates. He roars. It's not that he has any answers to life. He kind of makes you question everything, and he's like a vacuum cleaner. He sucks out of your ideas, your emotions, your beliefs, your meaning, your purpose, and you're just left clean. And you have no idea what to do with the cleanliness. There is no God in there. It's just you're clean. You have nothing to sit on. No sofas, no rugs, no fridge, nothing. You just sit, And of course, for someone like Socrates, it's called enlightenment, I suppose. What needs to happen is that this lion needs to be guided. Because the lion is really like a camel. It's just the lion is no longer carrying the baggage of society. The lion, i.e. camel, is now carrying this bag called pride, arrogance, hubris. Now you need to wait and wait and wait and wait until someone comes your way. Or maybe it's your own intuition. I'm not quite sure how, change comes about. Forgive me, beginning. Jordan Peterson was really sick, almost dying a few years ago. He was in a coma. They didn't know if he was going to come out and survive. He has, this is a guy who's kind of tasted sickness. And when you're sick and in pain and all alone, I think when you kind of regain your health, the best thing you can do is go on the stage and tell people, if you have a wife, if you have a husband, if you have kids, if you have parents, if you have a job, take care of the stuff you have. You don't need enlightenment. You don't need to go through a spiritual quest. Stay healthy. Take care of the people in your life. But no, they come out and traumatize us some more, as if society hasn't done that enough. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the sort of change that he is asking us, the sort of things that he's demanding are bad. They're actually quite good. I just don't think they're possible, the way that, all these people describe them to be. The only way that this lion can experience humility is that there needs to be a dragon. And it can be a dragon who is nice and kind, you know, that like that movie, How to Tame a Dragon or How to Domesticate a Dragon. It's a cartoon for
Toothless.
kids. It's what?
Toothless?
Yeah, Toothless.
Is that his name?
And so this dragon needs to kind of breathe out fire. And that's the only way that the arrogance that lives inside the lion can kind of go away. Do you know how difficult it is, Emily, for that change to happen? You know, in the Christian world, you have the Christian desert fathers. They know that the spoken language can breed, can kind of initiate arrogance, that assumption that one knows what one is talking about, you know. I mean, even consider your question and the way I'm approaching it. You talk about change, and perhaps what I should have asked you in the first place was, what kind of change are you talking about? But no. I go on this rampage, you know, assuming that I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's the arrogance I'm talking about. You know, I have a lot of it. And, you know, the only way that I think a dragon can be found, I mean, there are two ways. You know, life can give you an episode that just breaks you. And breaks you in a way that is unforgettable, because we are creatures that forget far too easily. You know. Or you have someone from the outside, a dragon. You know, as the many times I've spoken of this man Hussein. That he has no shame, he's not embarrassed. He kind of just looks at me and says, your question is stupid. Your comment was stupid. Your life is stupid. You know, and there is something about him, and there is something about the relationship that you have with him, that, you know, those spankings are, despite their pain, they're actually quite enjoyable. You know, he breathes out fire, and whatever arrogance that may have lived inside you slowly goes away. You know, because you need to become a different lion. You know, you need to be a lion as a protector of the jungle. You need to be a Jordan Peterson, you know, who goes on the stage and talks about suffering and pain in a very real and practical way, you know. And there is little to no hint of arrogance inside him, most of the times, you know. And I think the only way that you're able to kind of have this dragon breathing fire next to you is to really like his company, despite, you know, all the miserable way he or she makes you feel. There is no other way, I don't think. You know, and you can't just like him. I mean, we all like people, and it doesn't take very much for us to dislike them and slowly move towards hating them. You know, you have to love this dragon who is kind of just, you know, destroying, turning to ash every awful thing that may live inside you. The thing about the Western culture, Emily, is this. When you have a guide or a teacher or a Jesus Christ or a Socrates that breathes out fire and destroys you, in many of the ancient cultures, including the West for the longest time, before the, you know, Industrial Revolution took place, that when you were completely broken, you could actually pray. You had the beliefs, you had the language, there was the culture and the tradition and the rituals. All these different components were in place. And you knew exactly where to go should life offer you or deliver you a really, really bad event that broke you or shattered you into pieces. We don't have that today. So when someone destroys your interior, you know, you don't have the religious language, you don't have a religious psyche, you don't have the religious rituals. So you kind of just sit there and you have to fake it. You've hated Christianity most of your life, and now your teacher says, well, read the Gospels. You'll be an atheist, and I'm not saying it's not possible. The work is tremendous on your part because you have to create things that the culture never gave you. It's kind of like, every 2-3 years being forced into a foster home. The moment you become attached, you're forced, to cut the umbilical cord. And by the time you're 30, you have no idea what faith is, not trust is, not love is. You don't know what any of these important components that make life worth living are. And so what you have to do at the age of 40, you say, I don't want to live like this anymore. And now you have to create the language of faith inside yourself, most often by yourself. You have to create the language of love, of faith, of trust. And it's just too much. And the way the story ends, I think for Nietzsche, I don't remember the story too well, is that once the lion is tamed, when he truly becomes the king of the zoo or society, like a Malcolm or an Angela or a Mahatma Gandhi, they become a dragon, but they're there to baptize other people, but they have this humility inside them. They have this kind of childlikeness about them that most people enjoy their presence and their company. If I was to put myself within the context of the story I just shared with you, I don't think I could go through it. There are many areas of life, responsibilities of life, that are bending my back and breaking my back. I would want to get rid of them, but I can't. The cost is too much. The price is too much. I don't even know that if I was to get rid of them, if I myself could survive the guilt and the shame and the remorse and the embarrassment. I had a friend who was profoundly religious, in a good way. He had a wife who was disabled. Disabled in many ways, physically, emotionally. And every one of us in our community went to him and said, you need to divorce this woman. He is ruining you, he's ruining herself, and he's ruining your children. And what we were really telling him is that you've become a camel, and we see you, you look just ragged. Just get rid of this baggage and just live your life freely if you can. And he was very close to signing all the papers. But the guilt, his own conscience, the way he was brought up, his culture, his sense of religiosity that God is kind of looking down and he's going to damn him should he divorce, or walk away from a relationship, knowing full well that this woman can't really take care of herself. Let me just wrap this up, Emily, by just saying the following. I think that change is possible. There is a great price to be paid, depending, of course, on what kind of change you're talking about. The more fundamental the change, the more the cost, the more the conflict, the more the pain, and the more the sacrifices. And it's only possible if you really, really, really love the components or the person who are forcing change upon you. Because you know, when you love something or someone, your capacity to endure pain just grows infinitely, you know. And, you know, you're aware of the book, Daughter of Fire. You know, the more she loves Bai Sahib, the more abuse she can take. And there came a point where Bai Sahib could no longer abuse her. And the nice thing about falling in love with Bai Sahib is that where in this world are you going to go to find another Bai Sahib? There is nowhere. So, you know, there is going to come a time where you're no longer looking for a Bai Sahib. You're no longer looking for a man. And when you fall in love with a Bai Sahib, you kind of fall out of liking and loving anything else. Which means that it's just you and Bai Sahib. It's a monogamous relationship. Which means that when he dies, or when you realize that he no longer has anything to offer you, or she, you're not going to have very many needs when you leave him or her. That change took about 10 years, expressed through almost 1,000 pages. And when you read those pages, Emily, every page, it's filled with tears, you know, and it's heart-wrenching, and it's difficult. So,
Thank you.
you know, as long as you know the difficulties, anyone, as long as we know the difficulties of and the demands that change makes on us, just in case you slip, just in case you fall, just in case you change your mind and want to go back to the old life. You do all of this with the understanding of how difficult things are, so you don't punish yourself. You know, I can't tell you how many times I would go to Hussein and he would tell me, Baba, just take it easy. It's okay. It's kind of like the story I shared last week. Things will work out. Don't worry. You know. But, you know, you're young and things are intense and chaotic inside you and it's all consuming. And especially the sort of books and ideas you're exposed to. You know, it's like Porsches and Teslas. They're really, really beautiful ideas. And then you go elsewhere, other places, and you realize, you know, those places don't really have much to offer you. And you just want to be around these ideas. And after a while, just kind of wear you out. So, it'll work out. Just be patient.